On this episode of the podcast, I have with me Jesus Martinez. He is the Senior Engineering Manager in Machine Learning at Planet. We're going to be talking about how the ML product was built. Planet is kind of a unique company, unique product set. I'll let Jesus talk about that. But we're going to cover some things that go into building a machine learning product, the research side, productizing, the market side, balancing his team. He's kind of got a unique team where R&D and delivery happens in one team. He's got to manage two different aspects of expectations. Jesus, super excited to have you on and talk about this.
Hi, Mary. Good morning. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
Awesome. So let's start off at the top. Let us know what the company does, Planet, and then also you are the Senior Engineering Manager of Machine Learning. What are some of those responsibilities? And then we'll dive in.
Right. So Planet is a unique company. In essence, we are an aerospace company. We design and manufacture and operate a fleet of satellites that observe the Earth, and from which we can get the imagery. And we also perform analytics on those imagery to derive insights. And it is unique not only in the way we've built and maintained that fleet, but also in the data and the information itself that we are streaming. We have a coverage and a revisit of the Earth that has not been achieved before. So we can measure things in a way that's completely novel.
Awesome. And then as the machine learning senior engineering manager, I'm assuming you're responsible for a lot of machine learning components, but give us a little high level of what you tackle day to day.
Right. Yeah. So quick examples are cloud detection, for instance. Like all of our imagery has clouds in it, and clouds are typically not what you want to see. So we need to build systems that automatically detect and map clouds, as well as other downstream applications detecting other kinds of objects or phenomena in the imagery.
Cool. I mean, it sounds like a pretty exciting product, the kind of exciting environment. So I guess when we first spoke, you mentioned obviously it's an interesting challenge that you face, and I guess it's a maturation of the journey of building the machine learning side, the machine learning product. You mentioned a lot of it was new. And you have to go figure out a bunch of things. And that's always both fun and challenging. But if you were to kind of go back and kind of talk about, when you first started, when you first joined, what you were tasked to do, and then we'll kind of kick it off from there.
Yeah, that sounds great. So I will, maybe I'll just mention that Planet was founded about 10 years ago. That was a longish time ago, I think, in my opinion. Especially considering that the commercial flourishing of space is going like mainstream right now. You may hear, of course, of a bunch of these companies that are like SpaceX launching a lot of payloads from different kind of companies and startups, and that's kind of blooming today. 10 years ago, there were maybe a couple of companies that were starting that wave, and Planet was one of them. Planet was the company that figured out how to do agile aerospace. How do you build aerospace quickly, not in 10 years, 20, not with $1 billion, but with way less and much more quickly, right? And that helps you not only have lower costs, but also iterate and arrive at a new technology much quicker. So Planet, in a combination, I believe, of real talent and vision, but also luck, as we all need in life, was very ahead of the curve at that time. So we had this huge capability, this company, these satellites, this data set that was years ahead of anyone else. And so that happened. And then we were like, all right, we have all this incredible data. There's so much potential here to unlock. Now what do we do? So essentially we had been way faster than anything else that even they thought of how do you exactly apply it, and definitely faster than the market, faster than what people were able really to consume. Of course, we still had a good business back then, but the whole potential was still unexplored or uncharted. So that's where we, the ML team, come in. So back then I started with a couple of other folks, and our task was to build something great out of this, how to extract those insights from this humongous new novel data set. And so that meant two things. One, that we had to do R&D with techniques that hadn't been really developed or or at least productize, and then also try to figure out that market along the way. So try a lot of things with potential customers, and also deploy as you go, because our data is so heavy, so complex. Doing R&D and deploying is quite of a tricky subject. So that was also a big learning for us.
I mean, I think what you're talking about in terms of R&D with techniques that weren't developed. Obviously, maybe you can talk a little bit about that aspect of it, because it sounds like there's some challenges there from your task to do things that people aren't commonly doing. You guys are doing it in a unique way, and you're going to experiment. But obviously, this is some heavy, complicated data sets as well.
Yeah, that's right. So, of course, tools to experiment and deploy machine learning processes at scale have existed for many years now. But when the data is complex and heavy, they don't work. So, in particular for remote sensing, Earth observation, you have typically very large files with all these different bands, different kind of bit depths, and you also have the issue of projection, because of course the Earth is really a three-dimensional object, and you are sensing in different ways, and organizing all that data in a way that can be consumed and stabilized really for a production environment is extremely difficult. And since the market of geospatial in general is not as ripe as other markets, for example, say, self-driving or other kinds of machine learning industries, even in the space of sensing of sorts, geospatial wasn't as developed, and therefore there was not an offering of off-the-shelf tools to do all of this. So we had to build it ourselves. And so that requires a lot of skill set, not only from a software engineering standpoint, but also from a scientific standpoint of how do you arrive at the most optimal solution, and at the same time do the science with all of that.
I mean, it sounds like a good problem to be working on as a machine learning engineer. I guess the question I was going to ask is, when you're kind of going into these new territories, you have to find people to help you to do the job. It sounds like it's not something where you're like, I need this person, I'm going to go hire this person because the skill set's pretty easy to identify. How do you tackle that?
Yeah, that was difficult. So yeah, definitely there were no people with, as you say, a background already with machine learning, with production systems, with geospatial tools. So we had to focus on just getting people who were able to learn fast, who were talented, but maybe lacking all this background. But people who we could trust that they would just own the problem and learn and ship and do all that quickly. So this is not. I know that a lot of startups go through the same thing, so it's not really a epiphany that we had, but that's what we had to focus on. So the good thing about Planet is that it gets a lot of people excited. So it was relatively easy to really find a lot of talent out there with actually quite diverse set of backgrounds that were coming from different types of industries of software engineering fields. But then when they joined, they were all believing in the vision of Planet, which is to help life on Earth using space, and also very excited about the novel technology that we were using. So we were able to assemble a very talented team, very nimble, and that's how we were able to build and develop and ship all these products so quickly.
Absolutely. The component of, obviously, you guys are going through this R&D, you're building out the product. At what point is it like, hey, we'd like to monetize this? Like, it's how far along the R&D track? Because obviously you guys are tackling interesting problems, but someone obviously wants to make money and monetize. So how early were you thinking about that, and kind of maybe just how early did that happen?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, so the expectation was that we had to monetize from the start, and that was a bit naive, I believe. No, I think this whole tech stack, geospatial plus machine learning, was not really understood by investors and people in general. And I know that this happened to a lot of companies that try to apply ML. People, execs, all think from that, ML is so easy. I've seen it in a slide deck or in a YouTube video. Why don't you just run that and make money, right? So there was, like in many other companies, there was a period of maybe confusion, and it was required to have some alignment between what was technically possible and the expectations. So we went through our first year, but yeah, we got over it quickly. We started like shipping and selling, making some money out of these products. Maybe within a year or so, we were starting to sell, for example, detection of objects like ships and other kinds of planes and various things, also roads and buildings to map infrastructure and so on. So yeah, we got traction early on. Of course, the first version of the format and version of the product was not what we have today, so we had to iterate, but there was definitely a lot of interest and demand for that. However, another big challenge in all this was what I mentioned earlier, that the market wasn't completely ready to absorb all that. So even though there was a huge interest from a lot of parties, they didn't know they have the mechanisms to ingest it. And also the procurement periods from many of these customers, who in many cases were government or institutional customers, that takes long, right? You cannot just sell to a government right now. They have their own process. It might take a year or so. So we found ourselves in a situation where we were way faster than the ability for the market to really absorb all of this. But the good thing is that it's been a couple of years, and right now we're definitely seeing this ramp up a lot, and we know that our data really is encoding all of information that's unlocking a lot of use cases. So now is when we are definitely making the bigger splash in the market.
Absolutely. I guess when you had mentioned, your team, obviously has to do R&D. We're talking about, productizing, taking, something to market, selling it. We have to focus on delivery. When I guess how is your team set up? Maybe that's even a better question, because obviously the R&D and the delivery component are two different worlds and two different sometimes skill sets. How is your team set up?
Right. Yes, that has been a big challenge for us, and we've set it up by hiring people who are able to jump between both. And so, like I said earlier, we had to hire very nimble people who understood the basics, the fundamentals, software engineering, and also math and statistics. I believe that is the key, because really a more specific skill set in like remote sensing or geospatial might not exist, but if you understand the basics of math and statistics and data, then you can learn that all very quickly. So also it was very important for people to have solid software engineering skills, people who can really build things for production, that think design from the ground up, even when you're developing algorithms. So it's something, a problem that we had to fight is the people who think, you first build an algorithm at small scale and then you kind of hand it to someone else and they run it at large scale. That doesn't work. So the algorithm itself has to be designed with scale in mind. So that's where we need this mindset from both fields at once. And and how do you execute it? Well, it's so tough because, as you know, research projects, it's hard to really plan them. You're going to say, I'm going to spend 3 months on this, I'm going to get a result, and then I'm going to deploy it. You don't know what's going to happen. Maybe it takes longer. Maybe you get a result that is inconclusive. So we've been handling that by setting kind of lines in the sand, saying we're going to try to get some learnings, not result itself, not outcome, but just we're going to learn about this new technique and by 3 months, and then we're going to revisit what we do afterwards. So giving us some space, but in general, we attempt to only tackle problems that we think that can be productized within a year or so. So if something seems like too a bit too esoteric or too complex, then we may not even tackle it. That doesn't mean that there's no value in it. I think we still think someone should do it, but maybe we let other people do it. For example, other customers of our imagery, people who consume our imagery, they can build some more complicated applications that fit a particular use case. But the things that we do in our team, like internal Planet analytics, those are bigger, those are more sure bets related to the core value of our imagery.
Absolutely. I guess, I'm kind of curious because, we're talking a little bit about the challenges of, when you started, some of the challenges of balancing R&D and delivery. When you're looking to bring somebody on the team, obviously people have preferences, right? Sometimes you have the machine learning engineers that are super focused on the science and the research, and they love that, and they're a little hesitant to want to go into delivery. How do you position that? I mean, sometimes you have delivery people that don't want to do the R&D, but when you're hiring somebody, how do you help them see what you just described, or do you have thoughts maybe of, as the team grows, maybe you'll separate this? I don't know. How does the new hire kind of work within the system?
Right. Yes. So I want to. There's definitely a lot of people who initially prefer just to stay with the R&D world, but then it's easy to convince them about the impact. Because really it is by also working on the delivery and the maintenance where you really have the true impact. And because these products are so complex, we really need the ML engineers to be the ones who are making sure that things go well on delivery. And by the way, by owning delivery, I don't mean doing like SRE and all the DevOps kind of stuff. No, there are other people who do that. But what I mean is really doing the full ML ops cycle, making sure that all the content and the algorithm really is performing well at scale. And when you see when our engineers are part of this team who designed this system, and then you see it run in production, and again, it's a very novel data set. These are very novel applications. That's something very inspiring. And in the end, in my team, everybody loves that. Everybody loves seeing their model being run at scale on the globe and seeing all these macro trends emerge. So that's like an eye-opening moment. So and again, like all this works because we would hire talented people who are inspired by all this and seek impact in the end.
I guess, obviously, yeah. I mean, it's I think you're going to attract people to work on the problem. I mean, it's a compelling product. I mean, you're talking about it, and I really wouldn't be able to do the job, but I'm like, dang, it's exciting. I wish I could jump in there because it seems like you're tackling novel things. I was going to ask you, when you look back now, when you first started, and kind of we've talked about the beginning, how the team's set up now, and how you might even look at future hires. When you look back and you start examining, okay, what did we do well? What have we learned? What are some of the things that stand out from what you learned in terms of if you had to do it all over again and potentially doing it differently? I don't say better, but differently.
Well, I guess one of my biggest learnings has been the importance of communication within the company. Our company has really been has tried to do a lot of things. So everyone is very talented, but everyone is very to some extent focused on whatever they're doing, and this happens to many companies, obviously, when they're starting. But therefore, I think it's very important to make sure that you communicate everything correctly upstream so that all decision makers have all the right information, especially if what you do is very complicated and that they don't totally understand it. So ML plus geospatial, that's one of the cases. So I mean, me personally, if I were to go back and teach myself something, I would say focus more on upstream communication, not just on solving all the technical challenges of the team.
Absolutely. I guess, when you're brought in and you're kind of tackling things, and your focus is that new research development, new pieces, figuring out monetization. I could imagine that you're so focused on the work and so consumed that you do kind of have to get your head up and look a little bit further.
And also, and honestly, it's also about not taking things for granted. So you may think that what you do is obvious, or like the reason why you do it is obvious, and other people will realize it, but that's not true. So I think you're going to be very clear. You have to be explicit, and you have to repeat things over and over so that people in the end they get the message. And again, everyone has well intention. It's not that people don't want to listen to you, but yes, it's important. Coordination as at the company level is very important to enforce at those first stages where everything's to be scattered and wild, and you're trying to find the alignment, you're trying to find the railroad.
Absolutely. I guess a question. I mean, the company Planet is very it's technical. I mean, it's aerospace. We're dealing with super complicated industry. The leaders obviously who started it have a background, NASA, space, that kind of thing. When you're looking at the way you engage with your management, because maybe some people are a little bit more technical, does it change, I guess, your communication versus maybe, when you're in an environment where, let's say the leaders are not as technical, not as deep in machine learning, or maybe, it's a different environment. Has that helped you? Has it kind of had you alter your communication strategy?
Yes. It was still very, very important to break things down all the time, and I mean not because of lack of technical background from this audience, but just because everyone obviously is so busy and you don't really have time to give like a 1 hour presentation on something. You just have to be very straight into the point in business terms. It's been challenging. Of course, it's more challenging when we talk to people who have no technical background at all. But yeah, fortunately at Planet, that's not so much of a problem.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, because you even with I know you yourself, you have a PhD, so working in the machine learning space. There's other people that are super technical. What you do is so niche, as you mentioned, that even with a technical audience, kind of what you mentioned, I guess one of the learning lessons was to kind of think about communicating upstream more. And that was kind of making me think, with that technical audience and still those stakeholders, you still have to be able to distill things so that others not within your world can understand. So it's interesting that the problem is still, once you leave your ecosystem of people, that little extra layer of communication becomes super critical at that, at the higher level, especially.
Totally. And something else that I've observed is that it's not just about your technical background of what you know that allows you to understand something. It's also about kind of your paradigm. For instance, Planet, there's and even in our market, in our customers, there's a group, there's a population which are scientists, right? So these are academics, either inclined or outside, and their paradigm is like they want to. They want to tackle interesting problems here and there, might be niche, maybe not, and they focus on this one thing, and they want to, of course, get a result that's a bit better than what has been published before, and of course, publish. So that's kind of the objective. and then there's other folks who are, of course, software engineers, and they have different kinds of incentives and goals. And so what's important, even if they share the same knowledge about the fundamentals like physics or math or whatever, they still have a different understanding of what's important and how to proceed. So that's my team. We've been kind of in the middle of all this, and it's taken some skill to explain and to really get buy-in from all these different groups for what we want to do. And what we want to do is, we want to use science, we want to do experimentation, but in a way that allows us to ship something quickly and have an impact and solve a problem at a large scale.
It sounds like a pretty cool gig. Sounds like you're enjoying it and making a big impact, which is really cool. How do you want somebody to get a hold of you? Obviously, you talked about a lot of cool things. Super interesting subject matter. What's a good way of contacting you?
Yeah, I guess the best way and easiest for everyone to remember is via email, jesus@planet.com. And you can reach me. Also LinkedIn, if you look for my name, Jesus Martinez Manso. I have a double last name because I'm from Spain, and that's how we do things there. You can also find me, and I'll be very happy to talk to anyone. Really.
Awesome, man. Thanks for being on. Thanks for sharing. Super interesting conversation. And I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks, Mir.
All right. That's it for the episode. Back in, different guest, different topic. Two things. One, if you know someone that can talk about overcoming the bottleneck of getting to some wider AI, that'd be awesome. I think a lot of people would find that interesting. A slightly different topic we'd cover, but I'd be super excited to cover it. So reach out, let me know. Secondly, if you found the podcast useful, please share it. That's how we grow. We make the show so that we can share information. And if somebody else would find the episode interesting, send the episode their way. Until next time, thank you and goodbye.